Good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, How Founders Enforce Multipliers Lead, with MAPS coaches Adam Hergenrother and Hallie Warner. Please note that this webinar is being recorded, and you'll automatically receive the webinar within an hour after the call. If you have any questions for your coach, please type them into the questions box located in your webinar taskbar. Following the webinar, if you have any questions about today's call or coaching or the coaching program, please email us at fasttrack@kw.com. That is fasttrack@kw.com. That's all for me. Adam and Hallie, take it away.
Great, thank you so much. Well, thank you everybody for jumping on and learning a little bit about the founder and the force multiplier and a little bit about Hallie and I. And you'll understand that when Gary says hire your boss, I did, because Hallie yells at me all the time, and hopefully she yells at me on this broadcast to show you that she does. We're super excited to serve you guys, not only here but on our journey together. And just people don't understand necessarily. They ask why we wrote the book. And so I always start with last year we had about 139 different countries and about 40,000 people read the blog that I write. And Hallie and I wrote a blog together on 3 different posts about this relationship, this conversation, about the force multiplier, about the executive assistant, about the entrepreneur, about the visionary, about the executive, and what that relationship looks like from both sides of the aisle. And every time that we wrote this article, in about 60 days between each one, they literally were the top 3 blogs that I wrote, which was really cool. And it just shows it's cool you can test this out. And it's also a testament to the hundreds of people that are on this call about where this conversation goes, because people wake up and they go, hey, I understand what an LM does. I understand what a TC does, but I don't really quite get what this force multiplier does. And so we want to help bridge that gap between where you are and where you're going, which is pretty cool. So who's got the slides, by the way? You can do this.
They're up there. Do you not see them?
Yep. I cannot see them, but it's okay. All right, so can we switch to the strategic partnership, or how am I switching?
We're there.
Okay, sorry. Let me just make sure. Okay, now I got them. Perfect, thank you. I had them. Where are these things? All right, so what is a strategic partnership? So first of all, let me just kind of break this down and explain what this is, right? This is that mutually beneficial business relationship where parties work together towards a common goal. And the way that Hallie and I like to talk about this is that her and I are actually working on the same project, meaning that it's not like she's doing something different, I'm doing something different. How you force multiply, how you get 1 + 1 = 4, right, is that you are constantly working on the same project, just different pieces of the project in itself, right? And we'll discuss that a little bit later, but that's kind of where that beneficial relationship goes, where parties work together to a common goal. Hallie is not in our organization because she's obedient. She's in our organization because her and I have the same vision for where we're going in an organization. If somebody gets in your car and you ask them to put their seatbelt on, they're not doing it because they're listening to you. They're doing it because they don't want to die if they get into a car accident, right? So it's that same kind of vision that we have together, where we're very passionate about where we're going with Adam Hergenrother Companies, what we're doing, personal growth through business success, right? And then you have business partners, right? This is just, look, it gets lonely at the top for both people, for a force multiplier and for a visionary executive or entrepreneur. And you can create that trust and that relationship between both of them to have that strategic. Strategic is that word that we like to define, which really shows you that I'm being purposeful, Hallie's being purposeful on what this relationship truly looks like, right? And then each party is committed to dedicating their resources, the best things that they can do, they're bringing it into this relationship. There's no negativity, there's no victim language, there's no this, that. We're both bringing our strengths to this partnership, and boom, right? We're accountable for our contribution deliverables. They know what they're going to get from me. I know what I'm going to get from Hallie. Hallie does a lot more than what I do, but that's her part of her contribution. Whereas my strength is something that necessarily she doesn't love doing as well too, and vice versa. Exceptionally clear and consistent communication. That is key, is to make sure that you make time for the key people. Look, time is this kind of we all have 24 hours a day, so how do you get more time, right? And that's kind of the key thing. And one of the things that you have to do here is that when the people that are in your life, particularly these force multipliers, you either give all of your time to them or you give no time to them. Terms to people, right? The people that touch you should get all of your time. If you don't, you end up giving 5% of your time to your top people who really need it, and more time to people who aren't performing at the same level. So when we think about exceptionally clear and consistent communication, if they need to have a conversation with you, if you need to stop, right? I mean, yesterday, Hallie and I had a 45-minute conversation because we needed to walk through something and talk through it, right? And just, you have to provide and give them the time that they need so that they can process how they do it, so you can continue to move forward with it. And then that's just the strategic partnership for it, and that's that respect and trust. One of the most important things that we need on that is the trust component on itself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the only thing I wanted to just mention on this is, and I should have put an org chart up here, but I think a lot of times the misconception of the role in this kind of partnership is that the force multiplier is running a division, or they are running all the operations for the company, or they handle all of the marketing or whatever. But if you ever look at an org chart where the executive assistant and the chief of staff live, they're kind of just hanging off to the side of the CEO or the founder. So I'm not responsible for our operations for our real estate team. That's Aaron, who's our amazing COO. I'm not responsible for the financials and operations for our construction company. That's our CFO, who's also amazing, right? So this EA, chief of staff, does not typically have any direct reports, is not necessarily responsible for any one particular function in the organization, but rather to support and maximize the CEO's vision throughout the company through special projects, communication, organizing the workflow and that sort of thing. And that's where for us, that's where the partnership comes in. And for us, that's where the force multiplier lives. So I just wanted to mention that. And these are all, oops, sorry, go ahead.
And one of the things, when you ask that question, what's the most important thing for you to be doing on a weekly basis, right? What is that in our organization?
Oh, talent.
Exactly.
People.
Yes.
Because that's the only way to accomplish your vision is through other people. So that's like, if I had a focus area, as all chiefs of staff do, my focus area is talent. If we were a major tech organization like Facebook or Google or something, then maybe my focus might be tech, but that's not my focus area. My focus area is talent, and everyone's a little bit different, but that's ours. And I did want to just also mention that we're going like really high level on a lot of these concepts. These are all things that we're going to be diving really deeply into over the 4 weeks that we spend together.
Yeah, this is just a general overview of what we're going to be covering. So when we think about like, who are you? One of the questions that we get a lot is, who do I need? Which we'll talk to in a little bit. But who you need really is defined by who are you? And one of the questions, because the quality of your life is determined by the quality of questions we ask ourselves and that we plant inside ourselves to get us to think bigger, is who are you? And so if you think about the questions that people are asking you for help on, right? What are people asking you? Which I think is one of the most powerful ways to say, how does the world perceive you, right? And then who are you, which is what questions are people asking you? And some people, when I ask that, like the answer, and some people don't like to look at the truth there. But if you look at the truth, you can figure out who you are, so you can determine out who you want to become, or which role you play in here. When you look at this self-employed kind of solopreneur, this is the individual who's trading time for money, and hopefully it's a lot of time and a lot of money, right? That they're doing. This is like your doctor, your artist, your profession. You're trading a fixed hourly rate for money, right? It's that kind of self-employed solopreneur. They're doing pretty much everything. They're the artist of the organization. They love to paint it. And think about it, it's not a money thing here, so I don't want people to get lost in that. Kobe Bryant is more of that artist, right? That self-employed solopreneur who makes a lot more than the general manager does, right? So it's like, who are you? Are you this person who loves to be the artist, that solopreneur, that self-employed? Or are you more that entrepreneur, that individual who loves to be very entrepreneurial, but doesn't want all of the weight of the organization on their back, right? That's the entrepreneur typically only reports to one person, and they don't want to report to anybody else other than one person. And that person's got to be somebody that they respect and trust, and that's growing themselves in a way that's consistent with what they're doing as well too. They're looking for somebody that the entrepreneur needs entrepreneurs, the entrepreneurs need business owners, right? And a lot of us are that entrepreneur where we love to be entrepreneurial, but you know what? We may not love figuring out how to make payroll or love the stress of having to let that person go or make that decision as a true entrepreneur does. And I think one of the best definitions of an actual entrepreneur, all of these, self-employed, entrepreneur, and business owner, have entrepreneurial tendencies. Understand that. But a true entrepreneur wakes up and they have a vision or idea. And as soon as they do, the first thought that goes on in their head is, who's going to do it? And then they have another vision idea, and the first thought that's in their head is, who's going to do that? And then who's going to do that? And who's going to do that? It's never, I'm going to do that. It's who. And it's just there. It's like thinking of them doing that is like putting a knife in your hand. It's just, it doesn't happen. And so they think that, and they're willing to take massive risk in order to accomplish that. They're willing to invest money into people. They're willing to be outside of the arena and outside the stands in the arena. But that business owner, that entrepreneur, lives in that risk environment. I remember well, it's a long story. I don't want to get into it. But anyways, that's the self-employed entrepreneur, the business owner of the project. Hallie, anything to add there?
Yeah, we've got executives on this call. We've got executive assistants on this call, people in support roles. This is actually a conversation for all of you. This isn't actually just for the executive. Like you as an assistant or an operational support person actually need to consider who you are as well. Maybe you really are not meant to be within an organization. Maybe you've got to go do your own thing. That's awesome. And conversely, those executives on this call, you got to take a hard look at yourself and figure out, do you really want to go build a business, or would you be better served running a division inside someone else's business? That's really the first step towards this, to really figuring out that founder and force multiplier relationship. And then the next step, once you figure out who you are, is who do you need in your world? This is for the executives, but also for the operational and admin support who are on this call. You've got to figure out what role you want to play and make sure that you're in alignment with the founder or executive of the organization. So you may be looking for a personal assistant. That's somebody, maybe that's your first point of leverage and you really need somebody, or it might be actually your 10th point of leverage. You've already got all of your ops and all of your business divisions built out, but you need some major leverage in your personal life. So that's what a personal assistant would do. They handle, all of your personal day-to-day family stuff. An executive assistant operates within the business to support the executive, very tactical, works on a lot of the day-to-day administration and meeting prep, follow-up, scheduling, travel, all the things that make the executive office run smoothly. A director of ops is somebody who's going to take a whole business function or a division and run that. And they're going to build out a team and they're going to build out the systems and models. They're not actually working on the same job as you, which is different than the EA and the chief of staff, which are working on the same job as the founder is. For example, in our organization, our COO and our CFO, who might, be really closely related to that director of ops, or even a market center administrator in the Keller Williams world, they've got a completely different job. They're running it. Adam is leading them, but they're not actually working on any of the same projects. So that's how we like to differentiate a director of ops role from, say, a force multiplier EA chief of staff role. And then the chief of staff is similar to the EA in that they're working on the same projects as the executive, but a little bit more on strategy, like we talked about. Usually they have a focus area. They are maximizing the executive's reach through communication, working with the leadership team on specific projects, making sure that vision is communicated, and then working with the right people to make sure it gets implemented.
Love it.
Yeah. So we already talked a little bit about what this force multiplier is. Again, we define it really as that EA or chief of staff, that person who's hanging out on the org chart, kind of off to the side from the founder. It's the right hand to the founder or CEO. They are managing the executive's priorities, maximizing their reach and influence. It's that one vision, one mission, and one job. They're just doing different pieces of it.
So leadership questions, right? So when we think about this, we want to ask ourselves, what is your natural leadership style? What is working based on the style and what isn't working, right? So who you need what the force multiplier does for you is going to be based on your leadership styles too, is what kind of leader do you want to be? Remember, you're only a couple of years away from who it is that you want to actually become. So one of the most important things that you can do is think about and write out who it is that you want to become. We use a tool called the Future Self. If you want a copy of it, drop us an email. I'd love to share that with you. But it's a tool designed to navigate where you're going and what you're doing, right? And that's a powerful place to be. Is what kind of leader do you want to be? We are very decentralized, but at the same token, and things are not going the way they need to, if I'm 6 feet away from you, I'm gonna take a step forward. Now I'm 5 feet, and you're gonna feel me. And then if things aren't going well, I'm gonna take a step forward, and I'm gonna be 4 feet away. And eventually, you're just gonna feel me leaning into you, and you're either gonna leave or you're gonna shape up, right? And so that's just, I'm fine being decentralized until you need to kind of step in and push those different things. These are just general kind of leadership questions. Where do you shine, right? Instead of working on your weaknesses, how do you work on your strengths to maximize that component of it, right? So you just take that and accelerate your life to the next level. When people hear your name, right, what are the 3 words that you want them to think about right away, and why? And this would be a good question to not just rhetorically answer right now, but maybe just snap a photo of it with your phone and grab 15 minutes later on and just ask yourself this question. When people hear your name, what are the 3 words you want them? Because here's the deal, and all of this, leadership questions, and leadership goes well beyond, we're talking about in a business application here, but this goes well beyond this. This is your relationships in your family life, the relationships with your brother, your sister, your father, right? Your relationships with your significant other. This goes beyond that. And so I look at this as that when the people that matter the most matter more than anything else, your decisions for how you act become easy. Because when you put something, when you're very clear on where it is you want to become, the decisions actually become easy. The biggest mistake I see people making is they're not clear on what it is they want to become, who they want to be, or if they are, they don't have the courage to show it. So to encourage you all, in order to build your brand, to build your organization, one of the things that you really want to do is have the courage to share and be who you are, whatever that means to you. You're going to get people that don't like that, and you're going to get people who are your raving fans. But I'd rather have that attitude than being in the middle where nobody knows who you are. That's what it goes back to when people hear your name. What are the 3 words you want them to think of right away? And if they can't think of that right away, if I said Steve Jobs, you would probably have 3 words that would instantly come to mind, right? Or if I said somebody else and you're kind of in there in the middle, you may just be guessing. You may not be sure about those things. So just have the courage to share who you are. Okay. 3 most important things a leader must do, and we jump into this pretty depth. I'm going to stay kind of the surface level here. But number 1, the 3 most important things a leader must do, and this goes for the force multiplier as a leader and you as a leader, right? This becomes your job in the situation that Hallie and I are talking about. Number 1 is casting the vision. And the casting the vision means that you have to share this as often and frequently as possible. When you cast the vision, here's the thing. I'm just going to share this one point of casting the vision. People get lost in the word vision. They hear vision and they instantly think of a longer term play. They instantly think 4 or 5 years down the road. That's not what vision is about. Vision may be about the next 3 minutes of your life, the next 3 minutes of your EA's life, the next 3 minutes of your son's life, or whatever it is. You need to be very clear on that to be able to cast the vision for how they need to get through the next hour, the next day, the next week, the next month, and yes, the next 5 years, the next 10 years. But if you always spend time in the 5 years or 10 years areas and don't work backwards to the vision of the day, you're never going to take the singular small actions in order to build what you're setting up there. And then in 5 years, you're just going to say the same goals because you didn't really accomplish them. It's not about the intensity, it's the consistency over intensity over time that makes the big difference. I call them like those shoulder days, right? I took that from the concept of like the shoulder seasons. Like we have a fat bike to be able to ride between skiing and mountain biking, right? It's the shoulder season, right? And it's that shoulder season, it's the shoulder days where you can keep things going. It's a consistency over intensity. Now, what you work on is continuing the consistency and then adding the sprinkles of intensity. That's where you can get into real alignment with the vision. The reason why the vision is so important is you may have a team working and running as fast as possible, but if you guys are looking for a sunset and you're running east together as an organization, you're going to be running for a while, right? So vision is really important first. Number 2 is the clarity. And this is, it's exactly how the word is defined. This is just Most people are clear in their head, but they're not clear in communication to other people. So we break down throughout this course of how to do that. What are systems? Look, everybody's got to move from being entrepreneurial in the business to running a business that is based on systems, models, and processes that define a certain output that you're going to get in your business. Until you get there, it's just haphazard. It's not a business. It's just some way that you're generating money that you don't even know how you're doing it. So the clarity and the focus allows you to wake up and go, I know exactly how to make money because, and I'm talking of a business application, because we do this, 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 and this, and it's very clear. It's like if you've lost weight before, you know exactly how to lose weight. This is exactly what you do, right? If you stop smoking cigarettes, this is exactly what you do. You have a plan for it. Are you being that clear in your business? And a lot of times the answer is no. And that's not because you're not trying to be, because you haven't been exposed to that level of thinking yet. And that's what we really want to break down in that. And then third component is this is just removing roadblocks. This is your ability to be able to see roadblocks before the rest of the team does. And you need vision and you need clarity before you can remove the roadblocks. Removing the roadblocks means if somebody's stuck, you unstuck them before they become a problem. You're seeing things well in advance of anybody else in your team seeing it. That becomes your role. And then if there is an immediate roadblock where you have to be reactive to it, you and the force multiplier figure out a way together to remove those, and you both take on those pieces.
Awesome. So if that is what a leader's 20% is, I mean, the fact of the matter is it's really the same thing for the force multiplier. The force multiplier just does it slightly different. An executive assistant or force multiplier's 20% is making sure that the objectives, goals, and vision of the executive that we just talked about are communicated and executed throughout the organization. And that in many cases does not mean that this person is actually doing them like a DOO might or a COO might. This just means that this person is making sure that they get done and holding people accountable to the results.
0 to 10 principle. So one of the things that we love about the 0 to 10 principle is it kind of provides a illustration of how an individual, a CEO, visionary, executive, and the force multiplier work together. So typically, Hallie's giving me some credit here. I have an idea or a vision or a strategy that we want to employ. We consider that taking it from like a 0 to a 1, maybe a 2, but typically it's like 0 to a 1. When I get past 1, it may be like a 1.3, but it kind of stops there. And maybe you're listening to this and you go, wow, that's me. It's like you have paralysis when it comes to actually doing it. You can see as clear as hell. You're willing to take the risk. You want to go do this. But like when it comes to actually doing it, it's like somebody's holding you back. It's like I feel like I'm being wrestled. Like I can't get in it. Like I can't explain it better than that. It's like this force that holds you back. So that's why I said, okay, well then why fight that? Learn how to dance with it, right? So that's the 0 to 1, 0 to 2, and then your force multiplier takes it from a 2 to a 9. There they get in there, the systems, the models, they build it out. They do this. They take it all the way through the process and they bring it back to you between when it's a 9, and so that you can kind of give your final finessing blessing of it, and then you take it to the market, you take it to your agents, you take it to your consumers, you take it to your employees, whatever that next thing is. The other side of this is you may have an idea, but then you're not doing anything with it, and so you personally, so the force multiplier takes from a 2 to a 9 and then gives it from a 9 to a 10 to somebody else in your organization to take it from a 9 to a 10, if that's clear for you guys as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's awesome. I just think this concept totally embodies really what we do and the different, I don't want to say the difference, but again, I just want to emphasize it. This is like the one project that we're working on. This is something that Adam needs done, not necessarily that, our real estate company needs done or our market center needs done or our construction company needs done. This is something that Adam specifically needs to work on, and me and our executive assistant work on it together to get it to a 10, and then we turn it over to whoever we need to. So I'm going to go through some of these really quickly. We're going to dive a lot more into these over the 4 weeks, but as the force multiplier, the EA, the chief of staff, you need to force multiply those 3 key components that Adam mentioned that are the leader's 20%. So how do you do that? So force multiplying the vision is the first step. So here are a couple of examples of what you can do to make sure that the vision is maximized and communicated. Protecting your executive's brand, making sure that regular company meetings are happening, and there's some sort of cadence of communication. And that's your responsibility to put in place, whether that's weekly team updates? Do you need a weekly team meeting? Do you have monthly reviews? Do you have quarterly all staff meetings? Whatever it is, so that the vision is constantly communicated, is your responsibility to make sure it gets done. Drafting emails, positioning your executive as a thought leader, making sure that they're getting awards, their name placed in articles. And then probably the most important thing is making sure that what they say, those promises that they make, are kept. So again, making notes of those, making sure that they're being followed up on and completed. Force multiplying the focus, clarity, and direction is the next thing that is an EA's or chief of staff's responsibility. Again, that's making sure you're really drafting that clear communication and constantly reinforcing the common goal. So like, for example, we often draft emails out to our organization maybe every couple of weeks. These are going out to remind them of what that initiative is that we're working on that month. However, we're all constantly tying it back, not just to that month's initiative, but tying it back to the overall goals of the organization and the vision, not just for that month, but for the next 24 months. Making sure you're project managing any action items, keeping your executive focused is one of the key components of force multiplying the focus, clarity, and direction. Always being an extension of your executive and providing clarity to other team members before and after meetings. That's another way to maximize their time. We might have a specific agenda of something we want to talk about at the meeting, but Adam, as the founder and CEO, should only be in a decision-making meeting. He should not be in a planning meeting. So my responsibility is to do any sort of planning outside of that meeting, making sure that team members know what they're bringing to the meeting, so that all he has to do is just make a decision. And then in addition to that, oftentimes after Adam leaves the meeting, people do have follow-up questions or want to know exactly how what Adam was thinking or how to get something done. So I will sometimes spend time after the meetings making sure that everyone's clear, and then they can move forward.
Exactly.
Force multiplying, removing roadblocks, is all about keeping your eyes and ears open to what is going on in the organization. That is looking for potential problems, making sure you're bringing solutions to the table, managing internal and external relationships. And probably the most critical one of this is that you're not overscheduling your executive. Adam was talking about this earlier, that sometimes your leadership team members need time. And if your executive is in meetings all day, they don't have the time to react to something that might come up. And if they don't have that time, it actually slows down the entire organization, because something that could be solved in 15 minutes instead is, takes 2 weeks to get time with the executive. So for me, that's one of the biggest things, is just helping to manage the flow of communication and who Adam is talking with, and making sure that his time is available so that it doesn't slow down the organization.
Well, there's that kind of like that calendar creep, right? It's like, and we had this problem a couple of weeks ago where I was like, look, I sent an email to Hallie and Amy, and I was like, guys, or ladies, right? Like, I'm starting to see a bunch of meetings scheduled in places that shouldn't really have meetings in, and like, and these, because they're like, well, and I get that there's a lot of demands, but we've just got to reassess what's most important so that you're focusing on the key things that are there.
Yeah, and that's actually something that I usually evaluate quarterly, and typically bring up like at least once a quarter. And then sometimes it takes a little bit of time to work through whether or not you want to adjust your schedule, and then we do.
Yeah. All right, lead yourself first. So essentially on this, we'll dive into this in the 4-week course of what this really means, but ultimately it's, what kind of plan do you have to grow yourself personally? Or the question I get a lot is, how do I increase my emotional fitness? And that comes down to the question of what are you doing to put yourself in a situation that requires emotional fitness, right? If you're doing the same things every day, it's not going to require any additional emotional fitness unless it's a plan that pushes you in that to do it every single day. Like that you get up and you meditate, and you don't want to meditate, but you force yourself to do it anyways. Or you have a plunge bath that you jump into that's 50 degrees every morning. You get into it no matter what, you just do it. That's all building and leading yourself first. If you want the top level talent that's going to be around you, you need to show other people that you're willing to do this and lead yourself first. When you hire people, it doesn't mean you do their job. What it means is that you become better as a leader, which means leading yourself and then having the organization flow with you, because you're raising the ceiling of it at all times. There's some tactics, what books are you planning to read, what trainings, what responsibilities to take on. What does your physical plan look like? I think physical plan is one of the best ways to increase your emotional fitness, because for every day, I would say 90% of the time that you're going to wake up in the morning, the last thing you're going to want to do is work out. For me, it is. I mean, I work out a lot, but like the last thing I get up this morning, and I was like, God, like, if I have to work out this morning, like, and every part of me wanted to say no, and I just forced myself to get on the bike at 4 o'clock in the morning and just pound through there. And then 20 minutes into it, you're feeling good because your endorphins are going there. But having that emotional fitness to push through there and that self-mastery of there is what's going to start separating you from the rest of the people that you're competing against, that you're in business with, and it starts building your brand of what it is that you're and who you are.
Yeah, the only thing I wanted to will add on this is, again, specifically for those admin and ops professionals who are on this call, I almost say this is even more critical for you, because if you want to be able to keep up with your visionary, you've got to be able to have these sort of plans in place to make sure you're leading yourself, because they're likely doing a lot of these things and you've got to be able to keep up. And then I'm actually not going to dive into this because we tried to pack way too much into 30 minutes. So we're going to talk all about this in that 4-week course, how to lead and manage up. This applies for any staff members. And then quite honestly, it applies to executives too, especially if they've got boards that they're reporting to or other stakeholders. But specifically, we'll dive into these 10 components about how force multipliers can, we say lead, we do not manage people, right? We only lead people. So we'll dive into these 10 points about how a force multiplier can lead their executive, because that's really, as Adam said in the beginning, tiring your boss, right? So you've got to learn how to lead your executive.
Great. And if you liked what you heard a little bit today, hopefully you did, Hallie and I would love the opportunity to serve you guys starting September 4th. It is a 4-week online and hour course just like this. Hallie and I are both on there, so you're hearing both sides of it, and you're not just hearing from one side and not just hearing from there. And we'll make sure we break down a lot of the things and plus more. Plus, you get some really cool stuff that we're doing along the way. That's just the benefit of being in it. And then you get 2 free copies of the book, The Founder and the Force Multiplier. So we'd love to see you guys there on September 4th. If you have any questions, you can certainly let us know or get us afterwards. We just want to respect your guys' time. Thank you so much for being here with us.